Number 2, prayer. We need to treat our relationships, we need to treat our relationship with Jesus like a relationship. So if you want to get better at prayer, is your relationship with Jesus like a relationship? Now, remember, this is a relationship with somebody who exists in the spiritual, and the Bible itself kind of admits that this is weird, right? John 4:24 says, God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth, right? And so in order to connect with God, it is a spiritual activity. It's also a relational activity. And right now, in our current culture, if we're just talking about the culture of the world, things that are spiritual are not elevated unless they're hyper-spiritual. Unless it's like, well, the spiritual world is more real than the physical world, right? Or you need to be hyper-transcendental in gemstones and crystals or what, like that's the thing that's elevated in our culture. This tangible, there is as much of a spiritual realm as there is a physical realm that work in unity, and we only really understand one, but we're supposed to have a relationship with the spiritual. Like that is so abnormal in today's culture. Let's just call it what it is. So abnormal. But do you treat your relationship with Jesus like a relationship? Because in my life, with my friends, my relationships are either growing closer or they're drifting. I don't have any relationships that are just stagnant. Now I have a best friend that we haven't talked to in months, and he lives in another state, and he flies helicopters, and he's a cool guy, and I can call him up, and it's like we're starting back where we left off, right? It kind of feels like that. It doesn't feel like we've lost all that much time, but really, we've lost a lot of time. And so if you're feeling disappointed and realizing, man, my relationship with Jesus hasn't been, I think I'm treating him like he lives in another state, and he's kind of out of sight, out of mind. He is that friend who you can pick up with where you left off. He is willing to meet you where you're at. But he also wants you to treat that relationship like a relationship. Don't leave it stagnant. Chase after him and do the work of communicating with him. Through some of the hardest points of the last 2 years, one of the things that I have, and the reason that I put this in, is because of my own personal experience of waking up one day, something happened in my life, and my initial heart reaction was, I can't wait to talk to Jesus about this. And I realized, I think Jesus is my best friend. And that sounds silly, right? But I was doing a lot of work to make sure that I was in relationship with Jesus, in communication with Jesus, in exactly the same way that I was pursuing friendships with people in the physical realm. And it was a light bulb moment for me when I went, Jesus has offered me a lot more friendship than I have accepted. I want to treat this like a real relationship. And the outflowing, the fruit of that, is a richer and more thriving prayer life. Because you're talking to him, and it's not, you've demystified it, and he's with you. Psalm 42, verses 1 and 2, this is very, very famous verse. As a deer pants for flowing streams, so pants my soul for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When shall I appear before God? What's the difference between an Old Testament and a New Testament believer? Is that we don't have restriction to the Word of God. We don't have restriction to access to God. Unrestricted access to him.